Bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone.
Bienvenue à notre réunion.
Welcome to our regular meeting of March 18, 2024. First, I would like to note we are gathering on the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Mr. Clerk, we do have quorum this evening. We have our members. They're joining us video. They're outside of the region. There's also one of our council members, Patricia Bouclevaré. She's not here this evening because of the passing away of her mother. This evening, it's one of the viewing at the Fredette Funeral Home. So we'll try, if we can end before, the council members could go there. And I know there's another viewing in the afternoon, and sometime not everyone can attend. Our thoughts are with Patricia in this very difficult time, so we wish her good courage. The declaration of conflict of interest. So any council members who would like to declare a conflict of interest on on items on the agenda. Seeing none, thank you. Adoption of the agenda. So you have in front of you on your screen the agenda. Moved by Councillor Jean-Claude Bertin, seconded by Councillor Marie Lloyd. Questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Against nay? Carried. Thank you. For people in the room,
the translation devices are available there, so you should be able to get. You should be able to get on the right channel. You should. Anyway, but if it's not working, I know we're translating online.
Translation is
okay. Clerk will have a look. Anyway. Merci. In terms of
adoption of the minutes of our last meeting, March 4, 2024. You had the opportunity to read it, so we need a motion to adopt these minutes. Moved by Councillor Joël Després, seconded by Councillor Germaine Galland. All in favor saying aye. Against nay? Motion carried. So I will wait for my clerk to come back. So he will be controlling the presentation, he will be our tech guy. Thank you. Joël and Germaine. Next item, in terms of public presentation, we do have one virtual presentation at this time. This technology allows us on the adaptation plan for climate change for Pointe du Chêne. And it's Mrs. Lindsay Bolton will be making the presentation.
So, demande à Sylvain pour
I will ask Sylvia aussi so she can remove her mute button so she can talk.
Yes. Okay, great. Shall I share my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Could you please let me know if this looks good on your end?
Looks fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hosting us here today. My name is Lindsay Bolton, and I will be discussing Pointe du Chêne's Climate Change Adaptation Plan. This is a summary presentation that is following a full report that we have submitted in advance, if you did have a chance to take a look at it. If not, we're going to hit on all the key points of the adaptation plan and leave time for questions as well as we go through. I'll watch my time because I am aware that we do have about 30 minutes to do our presentation today, and I don't want to take up any more time in the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll get going. So in the development of our climate change adaptation plan, we did follow industry standard methodology for developing these plans in line with both the Government of New Brunswick's guidance in developing climate change adaptation plans and industry best practices like the Public Infrastructure Engineering Vulnerability Committee risk assessment methodology developed by Engineers Canada and others like it. That process generally included scoping out the boundaries of the assessment in the study area, which was in the Pointe-aux-Chenes area, determining what assets should be included in the adaptation plan and the climate change risk assessment, including environmental features and important community assets. And specifically, the adaptation plan focuses only on infrastructure and environmental components that interact with climate directly. So we did not assess infrastructure that does not have a direct, that climate change or extreme weather does not have a direct impact on. From there, we shortlisted important climate change projections for the region, and we executed a coastal and climate change analysis for that. And through that process, we came up with a short list based on the impact of the change in climate to the community, health and safety, infrastructure, and the environment. We came up with a short list of what we believe is the highest risks. We discussed this with the community in an in-person open house, and we got feedback from many other groups as well as part of that stakeholder consultation process and to develop the adaptation plan. And of course, on the steering committee, this work was led by the Red Dot Association, and we did have a member of the New Brunswick Climate Change Secretariat involved in the project and overseeing the development as we went through. Okay. So in terms of what we did focus on in this climate change adaptation plan, we focused on the coastal environment, specifically Parley and Belleville beach environments, dunes, the tidal creek, and the coastal wetlands. For residential and private community infrastructure, our focus was on private residences, properties, and buildings, coastal protection features like Armourstone, say for example, potable water wells, privately owned water wells, and the Pointe-aux-Chenes Wharf. In terms of the transportation network, we focused on the road network, whether publicly or privately owned, critical community assets like the access points, such as the Pointe-aux-Chenes Road Bridge and Parley Beach, as well as sanitary and stormwater infrastructure and the supporting assets, whether it be municipal sanitary collection system and stormwater management systems, or those systems that are required on private property as well, or overland flow. For emergency services and public safety, we did look at the emergency preparedness and management strategies and plans in place, and electrical infrastructure and how we would keep power to important community facilities. And then finally, we did look at land use policies and plans and how development practices might be impacted by climate change, particularly with respect to flooding. Okay. I'll give a quick overview of the climate projections so everyone viewing the presentation today has some context before I talk about the recommendations of the report. In terms of coastal projections, we did look at extreme water levels, and extreme water levels are a function of sea level rise and coastal flooding, which would occur during a storm surge event. For events, we looked at the 1 in 5 year, the 1 in 25 year, and the 1 in 100 year annual exceedance probability or return period. If anyone's unfamiliar with the numbering system here, a 1 in 100 year event has a 1% chance of occurring in any year. So it's a way of representing the statistical probability, and it's something that engineers use quite often to understand risk. In the context of Pointe-aux-Chenes specifically, the coastal water levels and the coastal flooding events are expected to increase for all return periods or annual exceedance probabilities. And you can see on the side here that we're looking at water levels exceeding from 1.3 in the baseline to up to 2 meters, up to the 1 in 100 year event. And For hurricanes, which is a little bit of a different process than just simply coastal flooding, where we're looking at a hurricane level event, we'd be expecting waves, wind, and extreme water levels. And the processes behind hurricanes are expected to also increase in intensity and frequency. And the impacts we expect to be exacerbated by lack of ice cover in the future because of warming temperatures. Okay. So to give everyone on the call a sense, we've shown the provincial coastal flood maps here, and these are for both the 1 in 20 and the 1 in 100 year present day flooding events. So we haven't added climate change here. We do have maps available through the provincial database for the climate change adjusted, and of course you can imagine they do increase. The extent and the depth of flooding increases, but we chose to show you this one because this is the current 1 in 20 and 1 in 100 year projected flood line, so you get a sense of the current flood risk, which is expected to increase over time. Okay, we also looked at precipitation, and precipitation is rainfall, snowfall, and ice. For the 1 in 10 and the 1 in 100 year events, those are both expected to increase. Unlike coastal, instead of looking at the 1 in 5 or the 1 in 25, we looked at the 1 in 10, and that's because this is the event that most stormwater infrastructure that's piped underground is sized for. And then the 1 in 100 year event is what we look at for flooding risk and overland flooding design. So we really wanted to understand how those are changing so that we can protect infrastructure in the future against those increasing extreme rainfall events. Unlike extreme rainfall, snowfall, or what we assessed is days above 10 centimeters, and ice accretion, which is freezing rain that happens to usually occur with wind and tends to solidify and be very heavy on our infrastructure and cause a lot of damage, those are both expected to decrease in the future. So the risk profile for snowfall and ice accretion is actually dropping over time. For temperature, extreme heat days with days above 30 degrees Celsius are expected to increase in the future from 4 days currently to 48 in the summer in the future at 2100. And for annual freeze-thaw cycles, we're not expecting any significant increase or decrease related to those temperature changes around 0 degrees Celsius. And for extreme events, we did look at trends related to wildfire, lightning, and drought. Due to increased higher temperatures and drier conditions, among other factors like how much snow we're getting in the winter and how much rainfall we're getting in the spring, how intense that is in groundwater conditions, wildfire is expected to increase over time in the region. For lightning, we're not seeing any significant increase or decrease, no significant change, I should say, in lightning strikes. And for drought, we are expecting drought to increase. Okay, so that's all the background context that I've presented up until now. And if there aren't any immediate questions and they can wait till the end, I will finish off the presentation by thoroughly reviewing our adaptation actions for the high risk interactions as part of our risk assessment. Okay.
I think you can go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So you're going to see that as I go through all of the recommendations, they're all laid out like this in the table you see. I'll start by giving a brief overview of the risks that led to the proposed action, a brief overview of the action, and then we have lead and sometimes supporting organizations. We tried through interviews, discussions, and an analysis of all of the stakeholders involved. We tried to develop a team and an appropriate lead depending on that organization's ability and mandate to move forward with the action. Over time, the adaptation plan that we're proposing can be adjusted if another or better suited lead organization is determined. But at this point, we did try and assign it to the group that we thought was in the best position to move forward with the proposed action. So for emergency management specifically, we're looking at an event that could lead to forced evacuation, significant property damage, difficulty accessing people or vulnerable populations, and extended power outages. That could occur as a result of hurricanes, floods, freezing rain, winter storms, or other. And incorporated areas of New Brunswick are required to have an emergency preparedness plan and exercise that plan annually. So in line with that requirement, we are recommending the development and testing of an official emergency preparedness plan for the Pointe-du-Chien area. This could involve having the Pointe-du-Chien area brought into the town of Shediac's plan or a specific plan for Pointe-du-Chien, whichever is more appropriate given the regional context. Specifically, we want to note, we heard from the community that it's important that the critical community access points during emergency events are monitored to ensure that they're being kept open and being protected from erosion or anything that could stop people from leaving the community if they needed to and accessing an emergency center, essentially. And there's a few key access points that we highlight specifically in the plan. The community is used to using the Pointe-du-Chien Community Center as the official emergency warming center. And because that is the area that the community knows and is familiar with and has some quite a bit of on-site amenities to host people and vulnerable residents in case of an emergency, we would recommend that that center is adopted as part of the plan. And then finally, the community felt that there was a lot of public safety risk involved in people getting too close in an emergency situation to hazards. And they believe part of the emergency response plan should include some security measures, information signs, or warning to keep residents away from risky coastal environments, say, for example, during a storm surge event with waves and coastal erosion. In terms of public awareness and communication, specifically with respect to that plan and the risks, we're recommending that information packages or public meetings or whatever way is the best to communicate with residents is put forward to update residents on key points of the emergency preparedness plan. We did hear from the community that a lot of people were unsure of exactly what to do in case of an emergency or where to go, and it would be great to clarify that for the community so that everyone knows in case of an event that could happen at any time. Of course, we did see the coastal flood maps earlier in the presentation, and those are today's flood maps. And so it's important that residents are kept informed of what to do in case of an event of that magnitude or nature. And then finally, we did hear that there is a very well-functioning senior resident registration program in the town of Shediac, and many members of the Pointe-du-Chien community felt that they could highly benefit from expansion of that program into Pointe-du-Chien. And the objective would be to communicate to the public to ensure that they understand the importance of registering for the program, that it exists, what it is there for, and that they can promptly get their own names or their communicate with their neighbors or perhaps their family members to making sure that they are added to that plan. Okay. From a coastal flooding perspective, we looked at widespread flooding as a result of extreme water levels. And we talked earlier in the presentation on that being a combination of tides, extreme water levels, and storm surge and sea level rise. This can result in health and safety risks to residents, as well as damage to private infrastructure, roads, coastal infrastructure, and the natural environment. So there's many reasons why coastal flooding can be a risk to the community. The community felt strongly that although there has been some evaluation done up till this point on high-level coastal flood protection options, there has been no fully concrete assessment done on the options that exist, their feasibility, and their cost. So our recommendation, which you will see even more detail in the report, really follows industry best practices on how to look at many different options of coastal flood risk over time. And the industry standard practices may include retreating, raising, and protecting, and following Infrastructure Canada's best practices on assessing those options. We are recommending a comparison of the social, economic, environmental, and cost implications. So it would be a strengths and weaknesses analysis. It should be both quantitative and qualitative. The community and the town should understand the costs of all the options, the environmental impact, the environmental benefit, and the social benefit to the community. As part of the process, we understand that there could be immense regulatory requirements involved, and these should be properly quantified and addressed. Not that we expect the regulatory program to be completed as part of this assessment, but a regulatory map identified so that all stakeholders involved understand the next steps in executing on the recommended approach. The community would really like to be engaged as part of this process with public consultation, so that they can, of course, weigh in on the social, economic, and environmental benefits or risks that exist of each option. What this assessment would complete and prepare is a comprehensive and actionable plan. This is something that we heard quite often from the community, that they would like to not see another assessment that doesn't give any concrete options or recommendations. So the real emphasis here is a comprehensive plan with clear steps and actionable recommendations for next steps in preparing for coastal flooding. Now, we do recognize that this could be at a great cost, given the scope of the coastal flooding challenge, and we are aware that a project like this may require outside funding sources to be obtained to support an initiative of this magnitude. With that, we are suggesting that the town of Shediac lead the work and can be supported by the New Brunswick provincial government, who can also support in identifying possible funding sources for the work, as well as community organizations as key stakeholders. And continuing with the coastal flooding risk, there are some other impacts that were identified as potentially high risk and important to the community, those being maintaining Parley Beach in the dune system, as well as Bellevue Beach in the dune system. For Parley Beach first, we discussed with the community around beach nourishment assessment that considers projections for climate change, so how climate change is going to affect beach nourishment processes and how beach nourishment should be done in the future, as well as strategies for dune improvement to improve resilience of the existing dunes. And that could be some structural stability of the dunes. We're recommending that the New Brunswick Department of Tourism and Environment, who is currently covers the profile of the beach nourishment program, be responsible for this recommendation. In terms of maintaining the Bellevue Beach and dune system, we're recommending that in lieu of a formal beach nourishment program, which there is none because it is related to private property, the community organizations continue to promote beach and dune restoration projects at Bellevue Beach. And there are a number of community organizations and volunteer groups who may be involved in this recommendation. In terms of improved public awareness and preparedness to minimize impacts to private property, we did hear quite loudly in the stakeholder consultation meetings that residents were not aware of potential flooding risks. They had a lot of questions around the realities of these flooding risks and how to prepare for them and how to protect their properties if possible. So the communication that we are looking for in terms of public awareness and preparedness that we're recommending is to communicate strategies for reducing impacts to individuals and their property at the property level, whether that is recommending, not finishing basements, to having sump pump systems, to how sandbags could be used on a property, to if basement is being used, raising electrical and mechanical infrastructure at that level. Those are the types of conversations that residents would appreciate and need some help deciphering the risks to their property and what is the best way that they can protect that infrastructure. In terms of enforcement of development restrictions and long-term land use planning, we're recommending that development restrictions just be revisited in the long term to ensure their appropriate boundaries are being maintained with sea level rise as the projections are expected to increase. However, we're not saying that there's anything wrong with the development projection level currently. It's just something that we're recommending in the long term be revisited with climate change projections. Okay, for transportation asset infrastructure, we have assessed the risk of flooding, deteriorating roads, and community aesthetics. This is some of the feedback we got from the community, and some health and safety concerns related to accidents and limited access for emergency vehicles on some important roads. So we are aware in terms of road maintenance responsibilities that Town Council recently adopted a motion to review the private road maintenance in Pointe-aux-Chenes. So that could, as that topic evolves, that could impact the recommendation. But based on what we do know today, we do know that residents are not clear of their individual responsibilities with respect to road maintenance and the importance of keeping roads maintained for emergency vehicles and flood risks and health and safety concerns. So within that context, there could be a community information campaign associated with that would be beneficial. We're also recommending a minimum standard for private road owners. If other residents and organizations are responsible for maintaining these private roads, there is a requirement for best practices for regular road maintenance, for repairing cracks and potholes to keep the roads in a minimum standard. And then finally, for proactive infrastructure upgrades to incorporate climate change, we're recommending that critical access points are evaluated to determine if the elevation is suitable for providing access during extreme weather events, and to make sure that there are just critical points of access that are maintained over time for emergency services with respect to the flooding projections that we've shown in the report. In some circumstances, it may be required to raise infrastructure to maintain those access points over time. And so if investment is done in the road, in any of these sections of road, we're recommending that they be considered for raising and that a priority is placed on critical infrastructure access points over time. And if everyone is aware that the risk is increasing, it can be prioritized to prepare for a longer term flood risk. For extreme rainfall and stormwater management, we assess the challenges associated with extreme rainfall events and flooding, poor drainage, property damage, and muddy roads deteriorating road assets. So what we did find when completing this assessment is that the Pointe-aux-Chenes community does not have a community-wide stormwater management plan that looks at the top of the watershed right to the bottom to ensure that there's a consistent and cohesive stormwater management system. We are recommending that to support a stormwater management plan, that the drainage system, the assets are surveyed so that so that we know where they are. A stormwater model is used to evaluate the capacity, assess risk, and recommend upgrades, both for now and in the future. And the community would like to see if there are nature-based or low-impact development techniques that could be used to help with stormwater management. And opinions of probable cost would be required, or cost estimates, in order to understand over time the asset management strategy for stormwater infrastructure and where it's lacking. Maintenance of existing stormwater infrastructure as well on private roads, especially discussing with community members to enforce, promote a minimum standard so that everyone understands the impact they're having downstream if those ditches and culverts are not maintained. And also finally, a property owner education and awareness. So this goes back to talking to the community about the importance of this and the impact on neighbors. And where new programs or bylaws are introduced, we're recommending that community organizations host information sessions to inform the public about these programs and standards. In terms of tidal creek drainage, the risk involves sediment buildup that's led to ineffective drainage in tidal cycles and extreme rainfall and corresponding historical water quality issues. The adaptation action involves dredging and future maintenance of the tidal creek to improve surface water drainage. This includes the dredging project that's currently proposed. Our recommendation is in line with the currently proposed project to further improve surface water quality, improve drainage, and reduce flooding. The EIA was completed, the detailed project specifications. It's currently under review, and we're expecting this year for it to be approved. So it's recommended that the dredging program move forward and be closely monitored. So we're just further emphasizing our support for the work that's ongoing, that's being completed. And in addition to that, community monitoring of the impacts of coastal dynamics and flooded areas over time will help in support of the effectiveness of this program during extreme water levels and storm conditions. And the lead will continue, we're recommending the lead continues to be Department of Heritage, Tourism, and Culture. In terms of municipal wastewater management, so from an inflow and infiltration perspective on the sanitary system, this is when stormwater gets into the sanitary system, either from surface-related stormwater or groundwater or coastal flooding, any type of water that we don't want in the sanitary system because it is not wastewater. And this results in possible flooding to residences and their backup if their sewer lateral is to back up, as well as flooding of lift stations and overflows into the environment. There have been a number of recent adaptation projects, including lining of the sewer, sealing manholes, and raising elevation of the lift stations, which are excellent for promoting this work. And so that's great. And that's being done by the Greater Shediac Sewage Commission, of course. So in line with the continued improvement, we're recommending that ongoing projects to reduce inflow and infiltration for the purpose of improving system capacity during wet weather events, which are projected to increase significantly in the spring and the fall. There's currently planned assessments to raise lift station and equipment that considers extreme water level projections. So in line with that initiative from the Sewage Commission, we are recommending that that work is continued and that the 5-year plan proactively prioritizes infrastructure that's susceptible to impacts of climate change. And once you have a sewer system model and a sewer system assessment and I&I sources are well understood, that this type of work can be more targeted to streets and areas that are very wet weather prone and taking up a lot of capacity in that sewer network. So in line with that, we're recommending that identification of illegal system connections is continued. So this means I&I sources on the private side that should not be there, whether it's that could be someone's roof leader, a foundation drain, or some sort of source of wet weather that should not be in the sanitary system and should be in the stormwater system. Of course, there is a need for a better stormwater management plan in place to make sure that there is an area for that stormwater to go for residents to connect to into a stormwater system rather than the sanitary. And then finally, we did see that there was a lack of public awareness on the downstream impacts to neighbors and the environment of having a sanitary system that's under capacity and full of wet weather. And so a better public education on this will move this forward. Okay, and then for wharf upgrades, we did note that the wharf, of course, is susceptible to damage from hurricanes and extreme weather and flooding. We're just simply recommending here that climate change projections are incorporated into future upgrades. The wharf has been undergoing a significant upgrade project and a new seawall and armor stone replacement, as well as other historically impacted infrastructure that's being rebuilt. We understood that the projections for climate change and extreme weather events are being incorporated, but we've left the recommendation here just if they, it's just at the point now where we haven't seen any official documentation that climate change projections are being included, even though our conversations would lead us to believe that is. So we've left the recommendation here. And if those climate change projections are incorporated, then this one can be checked right off. Okay, so that is a summary of all of the recommendations you will see in the plan, as well as the groups that we are recommending lead the response to those plans. And we can open it up to questions now, or we can wait. I'll let Mayor and Council lead the questions. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. We've had a chance to see the and go through the reports, 150 some odd pages. So haven't quite read every comma there yet, but it's glanced through that, got a good sense of the actions that the plan is recommending. See that the municipality is tasked with the lead on several of those, and obviously it would be the local government doing that. So it's see that basically it's a comprehensive type of approach. More things to get done, more things to review, more things to study, as well as getting an education component to citizens in terms of what to so they have a better idea what they can do to prepare for these unfortunate events. Obviously will occur at some point. We just hope less frequently and then less severe, but that's about all we can hope in that regards. So thank you very much for that. That's a really great presentation. I do see I have one councillor that has a question, but I invite any councillor if you had any questions. I mean, now's the time to speak up. But Councillor Roland Cormier, who's joining us via Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Bolton. The only question I would have, first of all, thank you. The only question I would have, you've identified a lot of challenges for that particular community or the part of that community with the maps, planning, zoning, coastal flood maps. You've identified that. But you went along, you talked about long-term land planning, and you sort of felt it wasn't important to have a short-term land planning. I'm a bit surprised of the challenges that we're facing in that region of our town, and you're not coming up with a recommendation of a moratorium of construction or something that council could address. Because from what I hear from your presentation, we have a lot of challenges. We need to fix a lot of challenges, but we shouldn't be encouraging people. Maybe I'm bang off. We shouldn't be encouraging people to build where it's very not. It's dangerous, not dangerous, but it's the proper wording.
A higher risk, maybe.
Yeah, higher risk. I'm surprised that you're not touching that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your question. And so my colleague Lindsay Allen is also here, who worked extensively on that specific recommendation. And Lindsay, I don't want to take up the whole time, but I think it is definitely within what we are recommending that the current land use restrictions are continued to be incorporated and enforced. And then over the longer term, we're looking at climate change related projections and how the enforcement of appropriate water levels needs to shift over time to be increased. Lindsay, could you add anything to that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of development restrictions that already exist. There's the boundary around the wetland that is restricted for development, as well as the 4.3 meter elevation below which you're not allowed to construct infrastructure in the town. So we felt that those were sufficient sort of boundaries right now. But again, as Lindsay said, the idea is to evaluate those in the long term. Of course, it's difficult to say anything like, you can't build any infrastructure in the town. If you're building well above a particular elevation, then that's in line with climate change projections or present day climate change projections. That's we felt that what was in place was sufficient, but in the future, just making sure that those climate flood projection elevations are considered in those restrictions is what's important. So like I said, the projection the development restriction of 4.3 meters right now is sufficient. And the 2100 year flood level, I believe, was somewhere around 2.1 meters above sea level. So there is quite a significant difference there. Does that answer the question?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, great.
Merci.
Councillor Cormier. I have Councillor Boudreau, but I'm going to go to Councillor Lloyd first. What?
Yep. Thank you. You okay, Paul?
Go ahead, Murray.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. I'll go by your person. Excellent report. I'm going to ask you a pretty direct question here because I'm from Shediac Cape. And I really noticed the emphasis on Point of Sheen, which I understand that this was probably done at the time. But Shediac Cape also has a major boundary that borders our lovely waters. How difficult would it be to take this report and encompass the rest of the area? Because we as councillors, maybe not today, maybe in the future, will have to make a decision on the area. Town of Shediac. Town of Shediac includes Point of Sheen and other areas. Is that a difficult project? I know it might be expensive. I didn't go that point. I'm just wondering how these other areas can be encompassed if we as councillors are required to come up with recommendations for monies, etc., in the future.
Well, one really positive thing about this is this climate change adaptation plan was funded by the New Brunswick Climate Change Secretariat, and the project, to the best of my knowledge, was fully funded, and the Red Dot Association could give you more information on the application process. But if Shediac Cape is an area that should be included in the Town of Shediac's broader climate change adaptation initiative, and it hasn't been to date, I think that the New Brunswick Climate Change Secretariat would be a great group to discuss your needs for that, and that it seems like that would be within their mandate to support that type of initiative. So from a cost perspective, I think that could be a very good situation for town council to understand climate change risks in broader communities that haven't been included in Point of Sheen or the Town of Shediac's climate change adaptation plan.
Give you a better idea, Councillor Lloyd?
I'm not sure. Yes, I understand where you're coming from. So basically you said go to the government and they'll help you.
So the province has a mandate to support communities in developing climate change adaptation plans, and they have been funding those very well. And so I've worked with many communities in New Brunswick who have worked with the Climate Change Secretariat to fund those plans, fund 90 to 100% of the cost of those plans. And so I think you're asking what would be the cost to the town, and from my experience, I think it would be quite low, as long as you are specifically looking at climate change adaptation and not, routine municipal infrastructure work. I don't think that aligns with their mandate specifically. Does that make sense?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not referencing cost as much. I'm referencing a little more. Can your plan, your excellent plan, I'm not knocking this, can the information from Shediac Cape be encompassed in this plan?
Well, this plan is fine, issued for final, and the project is complete.
Thank you.
Okay. But I think the general principles of what they looked at in terms of, you know, what the climate change projections are going to be, you know, what is being projected. That's you know, the very basic stuff, you know, in that sense, that, and then you just need to apply that to, you know, the area that you're studying. I mean, would that be right, Ms. Bolton?
I think I would agree that the spirit of the assessment and the recommendations would be transferable to many local coastal communities regionally.
Okay, sounds good. So it provides a little bit of a starting point in that regards, maybe. Councillor Paul Boudreau, who's also on screen.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me good?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Good. Anyway, thanks and congratulations everybody involved in this plan. It's a really, really good plan. Just a couple of questions. In regards to the time frame, I saw all the actions and a lot of actions are related to the town of Shediac. An échéancier, is there a certain time frame for certain items in the action plan? That's one of my questions.
Yes, that's right. For each of the actions, there's a recommended time frame. It's either 1 to 2 years, 3 to 4, or 5+. And we tried to prioritize them based on what was an immediate risk versus what is a gradually evolving longer term risk. And of course, these are recommended timelines. They're not my understanding is that you won't be penalized. They're recommendations, and the timelines are for your consideration.
Okay, another question probably to the town administration. The cost to start implementing actions, who determines how much of most of your engineering work when it comes to road work and underground water and all that? Was that the mandate of the committee, or that comes back to the town to find out how much it costs to get this thing going?
Yes, that's right. It comes down to, we've made recommendations and we've tried to put them into categories of low, moderate, and high level of effort or cost so that you have a sense for the magnitude of the work. But in the end, the projects need to be a little bit more specifically defined and developed over time, and a more firm cost needs to be established for the work that is presented in the adaptation plan. The spirit of the recommendations stand and the direction we believe should be taken, but at the end of the day, it needs to be further advanced and moved forward, and more firm costs developed as the scope is refined.
Thank you. And my last question is there any money in the 224 budget to start this process going? And that's a question, I don't know who could answer that. Mr. Mayor or Sylvain or accounting department?
Well, I'll venture this, Councillor Boudreau, back in October, November, when we did budget deliberations for 2024, obviously this report wasn't available at that time. So nothing in particular has been earmarked for that, although it is possible throughout our budget process, throughout our budget year, essentially, to allocate some funds, as long as funds can be found, you know, in that sense. So and so it's a possibility there in terms of how we can attempt to review the plan, for staff to get more familiarized with that, and to try to allocate a cost to item number 1, item number 2, item number 7, et cetera.
Yeah, I saw there's a motion later on that I fully support, so that'll get the ball rolling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Oh, so c'est la fin de nos questions pour.
That's the end of our questions for the presentation.
Both Mrs. Bolton and Mrs. Allen, very, very enlightening. Thank you. Au point numéro 7, lecture de correspondance.
Item 7, reading correspondence. There's no correspondence for tonight. The municipal clerk confirms it. So standing committees and special committees, no financial report for tonight. That'll be for the next meeting, and not for police services, not for fire services. Well, it depends on which meeting of the month that it is. We have the report for building permits. It's there for your information. Figures for February are there. Where are we? About 900,000, a little less than $900,000 for building permits in February 2024. Just to compare, total amount was zero. There were no building permits in February 2023. After January, February, we're to about 4.5 million. It's starting back up. We're in terms of new development. So the report of the CAO, the CAO is absent tonight. Mr. Clerk, there was nothing in particular they left with you. Not to me either. He's on vacation. Took a bit of time. Don't have any recommendations from Plan 360. We don't have anything set aside under unfinished business. Number 12, introduction of new items. Councillor Bro wanted to speak to road signs on the number 15. Thank you, Your Worship. This is related to the road signs on Highway 15. When you come in from Fredericton on the 2, and then you go on the 15th to head to Shediac, you see a sign that says Shediac 12 kilometers, Miramichi 135 kilometers. And it's really 12 kilometers to the entry of Shediac. If you go a bit further, you'll see 1 kilometer from that sign that says welcome to Shediac. There's another sign. Shediac 7 kilometers. So that's confusing. It should be 1 kilometer. We shouldn't have something that says Shediac in 1 kilometer. So I don't know where that mistake was made. I brought this before council 2 years ago, and nothing happened. Nothing has been done. I'd like to make a motion to the effect that we advise the government of New Brunswick of this mistake, and that we ask that we remove the name of Shediac and the 7 kilometers beside it. It's useless. For the local people, we don't notice. But for tourists, it leads to confusion because it says 7 kilometers and really it's just 1 kilometer. Unless you go through Parley Beach, it would be 7 kilometers. But really, there's no usefulness to having a sign that says Shediac 7 kilometers. So, Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that we advise the province to remove our name from that sign, the one that says Shediac 7 kilometers. So it's proposed by Councillor Peter Bro to remove the name of Shediac from that road sign. It's a Department of Transportation road sign. We can send a letter to the minister, I would imagine. It's seconded by Councillor Joël Després. Any questions on the motion? Councillor McEnroy. Councillor McEnroy.
Mr. Mayor, I've for quite some time felt that there should be indication to motorists that there are 2 exits to Shediac, one being the west end, the other being the east end. And as Councillor Bro points out, the 7 kilometers actually does take you to the east end, exit 37, I think it is. I certainly agree that the confusion or whatever should be clarified, but it seems to me that for everyone, especially tourists, it would be better for those who are seeking to get to the Parley Beach end of Shediac that the sign give them clear direction that if they stay right, Skiduk, PEI, or whatever, they can also access the east end of Shediac, Parley Beach area in 7 kilometers, taking that branching off to the right. But if they stay on the highway toward Miramichi, the 12 kilometers would have been appropriate to take them to the boundary and the east end of Shediac. I'd like to see it clarified, but as I've mentioned before, I would like to see direction to both exits to Shediac considered as well. So as a friendly amendment, perhaps I could suggest that to Councillor Bro if he would agree that in reviewing it, transportation looks at that option as well as what he has suggested.
I think it changes the motion. I don't think
Okay.
that would be a proper.
Different.
That's fair.
Every proper amendment, I think.
That's fair.
This motion should be proposed, and then if they want to make another motion concerning that, I would certainly support that. But I don't think we could amend this one because it's totally changed the.
Okay, I agree.
So, Councillor Bro, it's, and I would agree with Councillor Bro. It's not really quite a friendly amendment, but if it had been had a wider scope, you might have, you could sometimes do option 1, option 2, but this case is asking for removal of that indication, simply. So easy enough. Conseillère Janice Cormier.
Merci. On n'a-t-il pas quelque chose
Thank
qui
you.
lie les-
Don't we have something that says that the next 2 exits are Shediac? Or something that says that the next 2 exits are Shediac? I'm not aware that we have that. Councillor Bro, you haven't noticed that? There's nothing like that. The only 2 signs, it says, one says 12 kilometers and the other one says 7 kilometers. I think it's important. We were in Amherst this weekend, and it said next 4 exit are Amherst. Yes, there are many. They changed the road signs to properly represent Pointe-du-Chêne and Shediac. I dare say that in a future discussion with the Department of Transportation, those are things that they might bring forward, perhaps as an option. Just to be stipulated, one of the reasons that those road signs are there as well. Let's not forget one goes to the 11. The exit of Shediac is on Route 11. And Parley Beach is on Route 15. Route 15 really continues up to Parley Beach. So that's why it's indicated 7 kilometers. I understand they're not going to put 2 exits to Shediac. There's only one real one in Shediac. It's on the 15. It's the Parley Beach. I understand, but on the sign for Miramichi and Shediac, the exit is on 11 and not on the 15. Well, you branch off to Miramichi on the 11th. Either it has to be stipulated, or there's a sign should say on go this way it's Miramichi, the other way it's Miramichi. It was like that before, but I think it's confusing. But it should probably be 2 exits. Well, the Department of Transportation will maybe offer up an option or a proposal, something that we can do to make it very clear. It would at least be better than what's now. There now. I know in past correspondence, it's why I'm raising the point. It was mentioned by the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure as to why it was 2 separate items, 2 separate roads. So on the motion, to remove the indication of Shediac where it says 7 kilometers, all those in favor shall say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, number 13, request for information by council members. An opportunity for council members to ask councilors to ask questions on any themes. Councilor Cormier, is this for 13? Yes. I just recognized Councilor O'Brien. I will go to you after. That's fine, Your Worship. Go ahead, Councilor O'Brien. Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to speak to the land tax, property tax for municipality of 2024. I've had calls over the weekend. I got some today, 2 or 3 calls today. I'm understanding that the budget, our municipal budget, was filed with Fredericton, and it's hard to make changes. It was also adopted. Or is there any way that we could make an amendment to the budget to maybe we could put the tax rate down? Is it too late for that? Is it really too late? It's too late. Once the budget has been deliberated and discussed, the council adopts it. We adopted it last November, the first week of November. Then it goes to the province of New Brunswick and they approve it. They have to give their approval. and then they send out the property tax bills, property taxes. I've had lots of discussions myself. We recently received our bills, but for 2024, it's not possible to change the tax rate. That would have been back then. We can review the question as we do for 2025. That's in November of this year. Okay, that's fine. This is feedback I've received. It's high. The property taxes have gone up by a lot this year for everyone. Yeah, that's it. That's thank you. Councillor Roland Cormier. Thank you, Your Worship. I have two questions. Question and a comment. My first question, to Councillor Bourque-Chevalier and myself, we made a motion start of January to get some legal advice around the Quai des Pèlerins question. It's been a few months since then. Will we be receiving a legal opinion at some point before June? The only thing, Councillor Cormier, we can answer, yes, we got an answer, but we don't have any precise details. The title search was done. As lawyers are assessing the situation, I don't know that we'll have an answer before June, but we don't have answers yet. If it's legal advice, they are also revealed in camera. I was just asking the question. Citizens are asking where we're at with that file, and the goal of the question is just for an update. That is fine, great. The second thing, maybe it's more administrative in nature, but I'll still mention it here. The eScribe program, the docs are meant to be there Thursday, Friday. That's fine. Could we ask if there are documents that are put in there after Friday, that we be sent an email that things have been added to eScribe, just to tell us. I read it all, and I just noticed that there's other documents that have been added that I hadn't seen. Just an update when you add additional documents, send a little note that other documents have been added, and then we can see what we haven't read. And for tonight's meeting, Councillor Cormier, there were no documents except a motion that was modified today at the request of Councillor McEnroy, but nothing was added since the documents were sent last Friday. Oh, okay. That must be the one I'm thinking of then. Okay, maybe. I just hadn't seen it. I think we'll settle a lot of issues with the motion. I'll speak to that in a moment. Well, thank you, Councillor Cormier. Councillor McEnroy.
Mayor, with regard to setting the tax rate, is there a provincial requirement that the tax rate be set before the assessments are established?
I know I might answer your question this way. There is a requirement for each municipality in the entire province to provide their budget by, I believe it's like November 15th. It's during that week. Which is why we deliberate. Before, it used to be mid-December, and they moved it up last year by a month. And it's now the new norm, for going forward.
Well, it's not the norm elsewhere, because it's putting the cart before the horse. If we experience a 10% increase in our tax base via assessment or something similar, then that should indicate whether there needs to be an increase in the tax rate, or in some cases, Not so much maybe these days, but in previous years, some municipalities have reduced the tax rate because their total revenues are going up 10 or 15% by way of increased assessments.
Yeah.
Do you really need more money than that to move from one year to the next? Typically, you don't. So if we end up setting a tax rate before the increased assessments base is known.
But we do get the assessments. The province will provide municipalities, and we got it in the latter part of October. It was during our budget deliberations, but not the assessments for every property, but the total of assessments in the entire municipality, whatever the total is, which is a huge number when you add them up. So we do have that, and are able then to set the tax rate accordingly, in addition to the municipality's needs for, expenses and investment and whatnot. So we do have those numbers. Just that at that time, every citizen doesn't know their assessment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the opportunity then, or we will have in the upcoming budget.
Yes.
The opportunity to be aware of how much the tax base is increasing based on increased assessments alone. And we can then look at, is it really necessary for us to maintain the existing tax rate, let alone increase it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We have that opportunity. Sounds good. Puis, moi, conseiller O'Brien, moi, je m'avais fait quelques notes, puis j'ai parlé avec plusieurs gens.
I made a few notes. I spoke to lots of people. It's a time of year for that. And with the assessments, it's called spike protection. It's a funny terminology that foresees that a property would increase in value by more than 10%, but it won't be taxed more than 10%. In addition, some people, well, that doesn't apply to people who have bought their house in the last year. So all of a sudden, compared to the previous year, the previous owner paid so much tax. You buy it in 2023, in 2024, your tax is nearly doubled because now you're taxed at the full value. So there are citizens who benefited from that protection and others who don't have the benefit of that protection, but it's not possible to target those who recently bought their homes. You can't just target them. You can only adjust all of the population. It's not really a great lever in that sense. It's one of the things that we're discussing as we discuss with those citizens. I shared with them. It's one of the things that the province did not touch with the bespoke reform is the tax taxation question. Lots of things to discuss there. The assessments have increased, have gone up significantly, and the impact it has on our citizens. It's one of the things that I want to discuss with the province of New Brunswick. We're doing it through two provincial associations, the Francophone one and the Anglophone ones. We are actually meeting later on this week to discuss those things in particular, as well as other topics. This is something that I want to bring forward for those citizens, and I would expect that everyone around the table would be on the same page around that. We have to find a way to treat people fairly and to have increases that are significant, a bit like a surprise. It's not a nice surprise. And I have some sympathy, a lot of sympathy for those people. Those are my comments for tonight. We'll see what we can do. Thank you. Yes. It'll come soon enough. The province could help with some things if the spike protection would apply irrespective of a sale. Or at least the bill would have been a little less high, but they might be able to do other things as well. Thank you. So in terms of presentation and reading of bylaws, there's no new bylaws to be proposed for tonight, but there are a few motions. And the first motion is related to tonight's presentation, the adaptation to climate change.
Move the motion, I believe.
Councillor.
Oh. Turn you on. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I wish to acknowledge the ongoing vigilance of the Red Dot Association in its mission to improve and protect the environment. My thanks to that organization for spearheading this important process on behalf of the community of Pointe-du-Chien and the town of Shediac. I also express my appreciation to all who participated in the development of the plan presented this evening. And with that, I move that the Pointe-du-Chien Climate Change Adaptation Plan presented by CBCL on behalf of the Red Dot Association be referred to staff for review and recommendations leading to the adoption of the plan by the town council in a timely manner.
So moved by Councillor McEnroy, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Merci. Deuxième, 15.2.
15.2.
It's not necessarily every day.
Il dit c'est. Il dit c'est. C'est
15.2, embauche de
15.2, like hiring of consultant, Pointe-du-Chien water line extension study, fire. So this is a motion that was tabled by during the previous meeting, and we would go back to discuss the same motion. So we had some information that were requested by the council at the time. Mr. Clerk, you said you would explain this. In fact, just to specify, so the motion presented this evening have to go back as it was presented during the last meeting because it was tabled, cannot be modified, by the way. The only information we said, the discussion we had with this this matter, just the province came back to see what would happen by using the it's the way we were proceeding. So I don't know if you were really able to consult them, but the exception B or C would be to establish a budget, half a cent that would be related directly to the same budget, but that would be create a small envelope where we could say the budget would be a part for each LST. So for the study, we would do Scoudouc Road and Scoudouc and Shediac Cape. So what we are specifying, so with our CAO presented was the money in this envelope could not be dedicated year to year. Let's say there are $32,000, yes, and $6,000, even if we transfer this amount, could not be guaranteed for this envelope for the subsequent years. So it's becoming a little bit more complex for the financial team and the administration. So that's what I wanted to say. And really, it's the same budget that would be used, the same budget envelope. So your discretionary fund. So the budget, for the discretion of the town council. So I don't know if you have any questions, but I could try to answer them if you have any questions. Questions, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. It's the same motion that the one that was presented originally, and that motion was already moved and seconded. It was tables, so we did not need to do this part. And I see Councillor Cormier has a question. Thanks for the explanation, Mr. Mayor. If we vote for the motion that was tabled, so implement option B with the motion, do I understand well? If we would for the table motion, it's only it does not include option B. It's only the motion itself. So if we prefer the original motion would be option A. So the explanation would be, and the explanation given by Dr. would be option B, to create a mini budget, only for those former LSDs or those communities. So if the council members prefer option B, you have to vote against the motion, which is the original motion. If it's not the option B, your preferred option, you vote for the original motion. if we support motion option 2B, you will still have the study, right? We will get the $5,000 study. Like, so we'll come back with the option B with in another motion, and the council will be able. One does not. You can defeat the motion, this evening motion, and present a new one. So that would be an option. But you can still support this motion, second this motion, and then the subsequent meeting to propose like that you have a special budget envelope. So one does not prevent the other. It depends on the option you choose because it's coming out from the same budget. The only thing, it complicates the things a little bit more for the administration team. And another option, we could vote against like option A this evening and vote for option or B this evening if there's an agreement. But you could present a motion, but it has to be unanimously. Yes, we would need to have like we would have to have a unanimous vote to add an item on the agenda. So that's something we could do, like knowing it's option B, so there might be like a consensus to do so, if it's the wish of the council. So can I speak to the motion? You can always speak to the motion. Thanks for the staff, like for listening to us. I appreciate very much. Like but I always like supported like the desire to have to do a study at Pointe du Chêne. I was reticent like the first suggestion because I thought more or less like the residents of the former town of Shediac would pay like double taxes that they already paid like for the infrastructure program, and we were asking them to pay another bill like for an infrastructure program like outside the region, and I thought it wouldn't be okay. But if the regions like outside the former municipality, they want additional service, and I'm one of these, like I was outside, so I think it's our responsibility, like with the reform of local governance. We were told like many times, like during the transition, that those who wanted additional service would be responsible for pay for those additional services. I think the option B would be solving my concern, and of course I will certainly vote for option B because I think this is the option that would be solving more my concerns than more so than option A. Councillor Boudreau, I saw your hand was up, and I have a few like in the room. Councillor McElroy.
Your Worship, either way, I guess the study proceeds, which is my main objective. I disagree with at this point, we're not in a budget. We're establishing a budget process that's pretty significant. And something I think should be dealt with in the fall. I think it's been suggested that this is a $5,000 expenditure. We know that Pointe du Chêne has given over $1 million to the town of Shediac this fiscal year. It's insulting to the people of Pointe du Chêne, in my view, to argue over whether the $18,000 that comes out of Pointe du Chêne that goes into this specific account, that should be earmarked to pay for that $5,000 study, just as the $9,000 or $14,000 that comes out of Shediac Cape for the same account should pay the $10,000 for the crossing guard in Shediac Cape. That's going down a road that's in the wrong direction from the spirit of amalgamation. I don't mind dealing with it when an appropriate setting, which would be a budget setting. I don't want to support it tonight, but what I also don't want to do is have this deferred for another 2 weeks, because the main motion, which was originally tabled, if that fails, the other motion cannot come back without unanimous consent tonight. So it would have to wait 2 weeks to come back. To me, it's a ridiculous scenario, and I would request members of council to support just moving forward with the $5,000 expenditure as was originally presented. And if we want to waste time hashing out this stuff down the road, we can do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as the clerk pointed out, the motion could be supported and the option B motion could come at a later date as well. That's also possible to do. Conseiller Jean-Claude Bertin.
I would like to read the motion, please.
But the motion doesn't need to be read because it was read the last time when it was presented. But Councillor Paul had waved his hand because he can't.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Sylvain. And I'll speak in English because from Harry's point of view, that option B that you're talking about, and there's a percentage and money involved in that option, if we go ahead with that option B, and if that percentage or that money is not enough for any other project, we have to go to council every time if we go with option B?
In a sense, yes, but the idea is just to have a small amount that is reserved only for those projects. I think it's a half cent, something like that. But yes, yeah, basically. But just to add to that, basically, in something that I forgot to mention, discussion with the government. Government said basically that the purpose of creating something like that is going mostly the opposite way of what the amalgamation was supposed to create. So basically, we're supposed to be one town of Shediac, not 4 towns of Shediac. So basically, that's the idea. But it's just to confirm something that the province has said to our CAO.
Yeah, my worry is not, and I'm sympathetic with Harry's point of view. It's not the $5,000. It's the later on that huge amount, I think, is going to come forward with the studies and all that. So if you can say later on that we can work on a certain budget to help everybody out, I'm in agreement with that. Merci. Thank you.
Merci, Conseiller Boudreau. So the motion as read before, just for refreshing memories, says we're at the ordinary council meeting of November 6, 2023. Council mandated the town administration to study the possibility of extending the fire protection service to the Pointe Chien Wharf. Therefore, be it resolved to award the engineering study for the extension of the water line to Pointe Chien for fire protection service, addition of fire hydrants, brackets, to EXP services for a value of $5,000 plus net HST funds will be drawn from account 1-28253 special projects of council. So on that motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. Or no. Motion carried. Merci. At least we one part done. Prochain.
Next item. It would be contribution for RDC trunk line. Mr. Clerk, can you give us a little bit of context? I can remind you, like in 2023, Englobe completed like a master plan that was saying like for the sewer, like for Shediac and the greater Shediac, they identify like a problem with like capacity. Like last fall, several plans or project development were stopped or blocked because of a lack of capacity. For this reason, the town of Shediac started to work with different services and with also like the RD Regional Development Corporation to fund like a study so we can we can make progress on those files. And we're coming back with this motion this evening because there is a budget that was granted by the Regional Development Corporation that represents 75% of the study of the project. So the administration recommends that, like, to pay the 25%, so to make some progress on this project. I know Bob McEwen is there this evening. Bob, anything else you would like to ask, at least to give you like a quick introduction? I would just have to say, like, this project will really allow, like, it would be a great potential for the town to go forward. So the study, we could see a great success if we can continue. Thank you very much. Councillor Janice Cormier, if you would like to, yes. Whereas the town of Shediac applied to the Regional Development Corporation, RD, for funding to complete the housing pre-construction study regarding the construction of a new sanitary trunk line that would run from Route 15 to the Greater Shediac Sewage Commission's Treatment Center on Cap Burley Road in Boudreaux West. Whereas the cost of this total study is $349,600, HST included, and the RDC has agreed to fund 75% of the project, or $262,000 HST included. Be it resolved that the council accept the administration recommendation to fund 25% of the study at a cost of $87,400 HST included, and that these funds be drawn from account 1-28253 special projects of council. I shall move, Mr. Mayor, moved by Councillor Janice Cormier, seconded by Councillor Germaine Galland. Questions on the motion? None? All in favor saying aye? Oh, he said he looked. Okay. So my only question, like a trunk line, I see like it goes to Boudreaux West. So will it be also serve Capacity? So the business of Capacity will be able to connect. So once it's in place, no, it really goes like to the territory because the it's really to improve like the system, like for Shediac. We're for now we're talking about the study. It's not like the work, but Capacity will be able to connect on this time. Bob? So this line goes through like a Shediac, so it goes to Capacity just to get like the would be the only reason it's mentioned. So Capacity could not necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, but so the citizen of Capacity could not connect on the system that would be put in place by the town of Shediac. So okay, thank you. They could be connected to the one with cost sharing, like if they not at this time, no. So unless there are any other questions, if not, all in favor saying aye. Against nay? Yeah, motion has been carried. Thank you very much. 15.4, New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. So this is essentially like a motion for to transfer like our short-term debt to a long-term debt. Councillor Joël Després, if you'd like to read it, thank you. 15.4, like New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation, be it resolved that the town clerk, the treasury, and the mayor be authorized to issue and sell to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation $4,356,000 debenture of the municipality of Shediac, according to the conditions stipulated by New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation, and be it resolved that the municipality of Shediac issue post-dated checks to the order of the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation upon request to pay the principal and interest on the debenture. I shall move. Moved by Councillor Joël Després, seconded by Councillor Jean-Claude Bertrand. So these are short-term debt for project to complete it. So the work we're finished, so put them long-term, so we will benefit, we'll get better interest rate. Questions? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Carried. Thank you. 15.5, award of contract, purchase of one articulated thing sidewalk tractor. Monsieur McQueen, can you give us a little bit of information on this type of equipment? So I give you like a little bit background on this one. So we asked for when the call to tenders for a tractor, and we went public on NBON, and we implemented the scoring model that is done for point by point. After discussion with the CAO, we decided that would be a good way to proceed with this type of equipment. So it gives us like the benefit to create like a point system where the needs that better meets like the needs of the town and the price also. One of the items with the scoring. So with the results of this system, we got two quotes. The bid and the one with the most bid was the one for Atlantic Coastal Equipment. So they would provide like a tractor, like the brand McLean.
Merci.
Thank you.
Councillor
Janice Cormier, would you like to read it? Yes, sir. Be it resolved to award contract TS 24-203 for the purchase of an articulated sidewalk tractor to the bidder with the highest score in the scoring system established in the request for quotation. Atlantic Coastal Equipment for a value of $181,452.43. Net HST included. Funds will come from the capital projects equipment TP account budgeted at $265,000. The balance of the fund will be used for the accessories needed to put it into service, included a salt spreading trailer, plow, and front-mounted mow. I shall move, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Janice Cormier, seconded by Councillor Joël Després. Questions on the motion? Councillor Paul Boudreau. Yes, can you hear me? So my screen is frozen, so I can see you. I have a question for Bob. Like this equipment. Hello, can you hear me? The technology, I don't know what's happening. So the used equipment. So what do we do with the? Do we get money like for the old one, like 10,000, 50,000? So when it comes to choose, like. I know like the half-ton can be exchanged from department to department. What's your plan, Bob? So our plan with this is to send like the tractor, the one it's 10 years wear and tear. So it's time like to so that we get rid of it. So we'll send it like to auction. No, I'm not questioning to buy another one, so I can congratulate. Like it's just like the revenue projected, like for this one. Which budget is it part of? Is it worthwhile, like to replace them? But the amount to get like a return, it's not very high. We would be lucky if we get $10,000-15,000 for this old machine. So the budget would go like to revenues for sales of goods. Thank you very much, Bob. You're welcome. So this question, all in favor saying aye. Against, nay? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Germain Gallant. I'd just like to read the next one. So this one, accord of contract, purchase of a tandem truck, cab and chassis. Award of contract, purchase of tandem cab and chassis. Be it resolved to award contract TS 24-204 for the purchase of a tandem cab and chassis truck to the only bidder, Lounsbury Heavy Truck Center, in the amount of 184,490 net HST included. The funds will come from the capital projects equipment TP account of 434,000 is budgeted. The balance of the fund will be used for the accessories needed to put it into service, including a dump pump, soil spreading system, plow, and wing and controls. I shall move, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Germaine Gala, seconded by Jean-Claude Bertin. Question, Councillor Roland Cormier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I noted there was only one bidder. So my question is, did we get a good price, or so why did we only got one bidder? So maybe Bob is not sure. I can answer, but we only got one bid. So we put some. We restricted the technical information, like for some items, we really wanted to make sure, like the style of the transmission style and the engine of the truck were two key components, but there were more than one salesman that could provide those parameters. So we expected more than one. We would think of having at least two, but we only got one. But we had a good price because with the tandem truck, like there's still a tender RFQ, like it is for the other accessory, because it's all part of the second tender. So, and I think it will be in line with the budget. So we're confident we got a good price, and we're happy to go forward, like for operations. So this is the truck that works the best, and we already have one. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Janice Cormier, no questions? Oh?
No. Sur ce.
On this note, all in favor, saying aye. Against, nay. Carried. Thank you very much. 15.7, the last motion, land acquisition on Winter Street. Councillor Cormier. Thank you, Mr. Cormier. Be it resolved that the town of Shediac purchase a portion of the parcel of land PID 00978-114 from the owner for a value of $5,688 to accommodate the realignment of Winter Street during the reconstruction of Main Street at this location. Surveying and legal services will also be provided by the town of Shediac. Funds will be drawn from the Main Street Reconstruction Project account TS-23701. I shall move, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Janice Cormier, seconded by Councillor Jean-Claude Bertin. Questions on the motion? I have one question. The realignment will take place. It's not only the purchase of land, like for future realignment, so it will be done. It's the one. It's a purchasing of a small parcel of land to realign Winter Street, like the reconstruction. So the Winter Street would become, and the main would become, it would be perpendicular instead of being at an angle. It will be safer. On this note, all in favor, saying aye. Against, nay. Carried. Thank you very much. So we have no appointments to committees. So I was hoping to have the two members of public for environment. I have one. I'm still working on the other one. Yeah, 5 strikes and nobody interested. It will come. So I'm continuing my work on this one. Mrs. Gall. So adjournment of the meeting. Councillor moves the adjournment of the meeting. Thank you very much. And so at least we can go to the funeral parlor for those who wish to do so.